I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Friday, November the 1st. Can you believe it already? Brought to you in part by Talive by Norbrook. Now, Talive is a generic to erythromycin injection, basically a more affordable alternative to Draxxin, and they are offered exclusively in plastic bottles, so you don't have to worry about loss of product. And if you ever accidentally broke one of those expensive bottles, you know what I'm talking about. But for more information, go to norbrook.com. Also, Unionville Livestock Market and Creston Livestock Markets in north central Missouri and south central Iowa. Now, Unionville has special calf and yearling sales scheduled every Tuesday this month, so be sure and keep tabs on those and check them out. Now, Creston, coming up here on Wednesday the 6th of November, they're having their all vaccinated calf and yearling special. They're going to have some of the fanciest consignments of calves and yearlings you can find anywhere, and it's right there in farmer feeder country, guys. Check out a partial listing of these consignments. They've got the Justin Peterson consignment there, 300 head of black yearling steers and heifers weighing 7.5 to 9.5. Glenview Farms has got 135 head of black yearling steers. They'll be weighing around 8.25. You've got the Brad Wiley Farms there, 175 head of fancy Angus steers and replacement quality heifers weighing from 500 to 600 pounds, and they're long time weaned, guys. Had all their vaccinations. Hugh Whitson there has got 140 head of black steers and heifers weighing from 5.5 to 6.5, all long time weaned. Walt Glenn's got 130 head of black yearling steers weighing from 875 to 900 pounds. And then Rick and Kurt Thalen there, they've got 650 pound to 750 pound steers and heifers. Fancy, fancy, fancy. And then after that, slightly smaller but still big strings of fancy steers and heifers, be predominantly black, guys. And you definitely need to check out that sale. You can watch all of those sales at Unionville and Creston at DVAuction.com. If you're interested in getting on that Creston sale and bidding on those cattle, be sure and get a hold of them early where they can get you approved to bid. Key reversal there on your December and February live cattle contracts. We had new highs earlier in the week and then took that all back middle of the week, and then they took out the previous week's lows, which that's a key reversal. It's a bearish on your technicals, guys. So as I mentioned on our last feeder flash, we're kind of on shaky ground on our board here a little bit, and then you may have missed an opportunity to get some of those better LRP strike prices or coverage prices several sessions ago. But keep your eyes tuned in there. That thing could flop back around just as quick as it went down. But we've seen the highest level of drought that we've seen since 2000, and I'm talking about a series of weeks with no significant rainfall at all. Talking about over 87% of the country in drought. Now, a lot of people will say deep in the fall that's a good time to have a drought if you're going to have one, but not the guys that are in cool grass regions that are hoping to stockpile some of that grass to carry their cattle on through part of the winter anyway before they have to start feeding hay. But it's been significantly dry. Of course, you get up in the corn belt, and your row crop farmers have really been loving this dry weather. Most of their corn had a very, very light moisture levels in them, and they were able to just skate right through their corn and their beans for the most part without any holdups due to rain. But now the rain is a-coming. We saw some rain. Talked to my friends in Iowa. They had some nice rains up in there on Thursday night. I'm coming to you from Oklahoma City, working the Heritage Place racehorse sales. Had some rain on Thursday night, not significant, but they are getting people ready for the rubber duckies to come out here, guys, later in this weekend here, expecting significant rain in central Oklahoma. Talked to them back home in the Texas Panhandle, haven't had a drop, but that's not unusual. But we're hoping to get some more as these rainstorms come through. And I mean, this is going to be a multi-million-dollar rain for your hard red winter wheat region if we do in fact get it. And I mean, it just looks like we can't miss, which scares us the most. But your fat cattle sellers salvaged most of last week's market despite the lower futures, and so we're going to say mostly steady on your fat cattle this week compared to last week's higher market. And we went 7 weeks gaining ground on your fat cattle, and then to go into a mostly steady market is not the worst thing in the world. Calf and yearling sales in your sale barns are just continuing to drive, and I mean, we are seeing some really impressive markets here this deep in the fall, and still on ball and calves as we're still working our way through most of them. As we get through the next several weeks, we will have gone through most of the ball and calves and moving on to big strings of wean calves, which a lot of your farmer feeders have been waiting on, and so we expect some impressive prices there. But this calf and yearling market as it just keeps driving here, armed with cheap feed and plentiful hay, because we had a nice spring and early summer, so a lot of people got a lot of hay put up, and it's worth the money, and you're going to need that whether you're background in calves or if you're going to grind it up and put it with a ration there. But we've got aggressive farmer feeders here. They had a nice crop, but they didn't make a lot of money on their corn and beans, so they're going to look into the cattle market to try to get some of that and walk part of that crop to town. Coming up this coming week, we are going to be celebrating 10 years of the feeder flash. It's hard to believe, but I've been doing these dang feeder flashes for DVAuction for 10 years now. We've got over 20 million views on our feeder flash episodes, nearly 2,400 individual episodes, and gosh, we just love our sponsors, and we love our regular viewers. Of course, we love any viewer that gets on and watches those from time to time, but it's unbelievable. Haven't missed an episode in nearly 2,400 episodes, guys, and that's pretty daunting to look back on. But we've got almost 19,000 YouTube subscribers, not just viewers, but subscribers that get it popped up on their YouTube pretty regular every time they open their YouTube. I'm hoping to approach 20,000 by the end of this year. Would love to hit that. If you guys are watching on YouTube, just go down and hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost anything. It's not going to change anything. It'll just pop up quicker when you open your YouTube, and so you'll be able to watch a feeder flash a little bit quicker, especially for you guys that have trouble finding that. But we have got a lot of things scheduled for this week coming up to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of the feeder flash. We've got, of course, opportunity. Got some kind of fun contests where you can win some big prizes. Of course, there's going to be a lot of cool swag from a lot of our sponsors that have sent that in to us, and we will be disseminating that. We've got some big gift cards if you guys are interested in that, on some animal health products that you guys like and what you need. And then there's just going to be some other individual prizes there. So stay tuned, especially this coming week here, the feeder flash, as we celebrate our 10-year anniversary of the feeder flash. Let's talk about your board on Thursday. October live cattle futures. Boy, that was an eye-opener if you just looked at the spot market. Of course, October's done. We're at the end of October. It has come to fruit there, and it went up $4.60 all the way up to $193. Now that's going to be more than $3 over our weighted average for the fat cattle this past week, but that just goes to show you don't want to get caught short this deep in the contract month, because they will make a believer out of you guys. But going on to your more traded contracts, December was down 12 cents at 186.30. Then your back months were just kind of mixed, and really a kind of a nothing day other than that eye opener on the spot market with hardly any open interest left in it. But Your back months on live cattle futures are down 27 cents to up as much as 50 cents, and it was more ups than it was downs. Talk about your October feeder cattle. Of course, they've come to fruit too. They had to really race to get up there close to where these cash feeder cattle are selling and get in line with your CME cash feeder cattle index. October up $1.02 to close out the month there at 251.97. Now you get off into your more traded November. It was down 12 cents at 245.37. Quite a ways back from where our spot market is, and I think it's got some legs, guys. I don't see these calves and yearlings. Of course, we're going to be running out of yearlings, and they're going to be even more aggressive for them, and they're going to put more into your index levels there. But at 245.37 for November, I think it's got some legs, guys, if you feel like you want to do a little trading. But your back months were unchanged to down 90 cents. Talk about your grains. December corn was down 2 1/4 cents a bushel at 411.5. November beans up 11 1/4 cents at 976.5. And hard red winter wheat for December up 1 1/2 cents a bushel at 575 3/4. Talk about your fat cattle trade, brought to you by Legacy Beef Cooperative, guys. You need to check into this deal. It might be a good opportunity, especially for you guys up in the Midwest there. How about Iowa? On Thursday had confirmed sales of another 1,000 head, 31,500 for the week there, which is about typical for them. Nothing like the big movement that they had the previous week, but live sales in Iowa from 189 to 190. Nebraska sold 4,800 head confirmed on Thursday, about 23,600 for the week, and I bet they do more business late on Thursday and maybe even a little bit on Friday. But live prices in Nebraska at 190 and dress price at 296, which is a little bit off the market there, and I'm not sure. It seemed like it was one deal that happened there, so not sure what quite happened there. Kansas sold another 900 confirmed on Thursday, 8,500 for the week there, which is about typical for them, and steady prices with the previous week at 190. Texas didn't have any confirmed sales on Thursday, and only 2,100 head for the week negotiated fat cattle in Texas. Now they may do some more late Thursday that we didn't see, and maybe they'll do some more on Friday, but that is hardly anything. I mean, any podunk sale this time of year will get about that many head selling through their auction, let alone all those feedlots in eastern New Mexico, western Oklahoma, Oklahoma Panhandle, and the Texas Panhandle, and only 2,100 head negotiated cash. That's pitiful. How about box beef cutout values drifting lower again? And we saw a 3 to 4 week up as your holiday buying and your rib was driving your box beef cutout value, especially on the choice. But I tell you what, select has really fallen off here. Not much demand at all for that product. But choice cuts on Thursday afternoon down 184 at 317.60. Select's down 395 at 285.37. Now your slaughter keeping a pretty good pace all the way through the first 4 days of the week, with 490,000 estimated cattle slaughter. That's down just 1,000 from the previous week and down just 10,000 from the same week a year ago. If we get a pretty decent Friday and then a little bit more on Saturday, we can have a pretty respectable slaughter for this past week. Your actual slaughter information come back for the week ending October the 19th. And unbelievable. Average dress steer carcass weight 960 pounds on the average, guys. That is huge. It hasn't been very long at all before we saw discounts on carcasses over 9, and then it went to 950. Now your average dress steer carcass weight is 960, a full 10 pounds bigger than the previous report and 33 pounds bigger than the same report a year ago. Talk about what else is going on. Green River posts have been around since 1987. These are pressure treated southern pine fence posts, guys, and they can bring them to you, guys. They're CCA treated and have a 25-year warranty against decay. They deliver anywhere in the United States, and the first 200 miles is free. If you need to build a lot of fence, get a hold of them. They can bring you a truckload of them posts, and then, like I said, they'll last you forever, guys. For more information, go to greenriverpost.com. Let's talk about your feeder cattle market. Your real-time index on DV auction, based on an 800-pound cash auction steer up through your middle 12 states, late in the day on Thursday, it's sitting at 250.22. That was a 23-cent gain per 100 there. Your latest CME cash feeder cattle index, 251.20, so that's pretty impressive, and quite a bit, about $1 better than your real-time indexes. Your CME feeder cattle index is mainly concentrated this time of year on your big premium sales in Northern Plains. They don't report nearly enough commodity type markets to kind of keep that thing in line with what cattle are really bringing on the average. But big sales coming up on Friday. St. Ange, South Dakota's got 7,500 head. They're on DVAuction.com. Be sure and check them out. They're in the middle of their big runs, and they've got a lot of cattle to sell yet for the next 2 or 3 weeks. Let's talk about your big sales on Thursday. Winter Livestock in Pratt, Kansas had an impressive sale. They sold their feeder cattle from $6 to $9 higher. On a good run there. That's really impressive, with calves selling sharply higher. They got a little bit of rain there in that part of Kansas, and it improved your optimistic outlooks there, and they need wheat calves, guys. And then they had a big dispersal from Morning Star Angus there, and I tell you what, they had bred heifers and bred cows selling from $2,600 to $3,250. Very impressive offering there at Winter Livestock in Pratt, Kansas. Good job, Steve Stratford and the whole gang there. How about Farmers and Ranchers Livestock in Salina, Kansas? They had 2,300 straight north of there. Market was largely steady. An impressive quote that come out of there was 63 yearling feeder steers weighed 854 at 250,650. Now, your National Beefwire stick-out sale of the day with Stockman's Livestock Exchange in Dickinson, North Dakota at the East Barn, 3,700 head of fancy northern calves. Now, a lot of guys are buying those fancy calves to come down to wheat pastures, so they're not just staying up there and with the farmer feeders. A lot of them coming down to graze. But you look at this automated marker report through Cattle Market Central. You see your best tested weights of fancy calves. 687 head of the 4-weight steer calves, average 450 pounds right on the button. The weighted average price on all of them of $347.45. There was 1,245 head of the 5-weight steer calves. They averaged $551 with a weighted average price of $306.89. Another 363 head of 6-weight steer calves, averaged $626, weighted average price $280.93. How about the heifers? And quite a few less heifers. They are keeping back heifers. It's mostly the lighter weights, but they are starting the signs of rebuilding up there in the Northern Plains, guys. 519 head of 4-weight heifer calves, average $455 with a weighted average price of $301.03. 466 head of the 5-weight heifer calves, average $534, weighted average price on them $282.69. Going to give you some impressive individual quotes from all around the circuit. How about Woodward Livestock in western Oklahoma? They sold 65 steers, weighed 815, bring 257 and a quarter. Pretty impressive quote there. How about up there in the Northern Plains, where they sell them big, warmed up and backgrounded feeder steers? Mitchell Livestock Marketing in Mitchell, South Dakota. I pulled out your 9 and 10 and light 11 weight big strings of steers there. Take a look at them there. How about your big strings of 9 weight steers there? They sell from $249.50 to $257.50. Wow. How about your 10 weights? Take a look at them. You're not going to believe this on 10 weight steers in Mitchell, South Dakota. They bring from $232 and a quarter all the way up to $245.50. So impressive. How about an impressive quote from Pratt Livestock, where I gave you to start out the markets here on your feeder cattle. They sell 123 steers, weigh 828, at $275.10. Oh my goodness. But that was not your most impressive quote. Going into your promises made, promises kept department, your Mackerson no BS top quote for the day come out of Napoleon Livestock in North Dakota. We had to go to North Dakota to find it. I said we would see some, and I was starting to think maybe not as the board crept lower, but on Thursday in Napoleon, North Dakota, they sell 139 unweaned but 2 rounds of shots fancy steer calves, weighed 408 pounds, bring $404. And that's your feeder flash for Friday.